Alright, well, as many will be aware, I'm not really much of a one for trotting out YouTube videos every 5 minutes. It's not something I do. I don't actually like being on video. I'm far more at home behind a radio mic. It's the old joke about having the perfect face for radio, right? But I'm making an exception here because a few people have been in touch to ask me my stance on this particular situation, and they've requested that I speak to it. And also, I just wanted to make a statement about this issue because it involves social engineering agendas, which is something I get into in my regular work as a matter of course. So this is clearly relevant. I'm talking specifically about the current push in society towards veganism and trying to coerce the general public into adopting a plant-based diet and vegan lifestyles generally. Now, this is coming with the endorsement now of certain celebrities such as Beyonce and Jay-Z. Beyonce is trying to get her fans to give up meat for certain days of the week. She's also getting behind the Meat Free Mondays brand, which is spearheaded by Paul McCartney, whichever one it is. So when names such as this get behind a particular program, a particular scheme, you can be sure that there's something more to know about why it's being done, because these people represent a control system that's not generally known for its compassion towards all living things and its desire to uplift all of humanity and keep us all safe and healthy and thriving. So the question has to become, why at this time is there a push towards this? Now, someone got in touch with me last year and asked my opinion on this particular agenda. And at the time, I couldn't see that it was going on. But this person was obviously very much ahead of the curve. They were paying attention because now, in 2019, I can see that it's absolutely a thing. Now, my own personal situation is that I choose to be a vegan for the most part. I'm almost 100% of the way there. I'm not completely there because I'm flawed. I'm a flawed human being. I'm very far from perfect. I've never made the claim that I am. The important thing is that I'm trying and I'm striving to get to where I want to be. I would say I'm 99% of the way there. I just struggle a little bit when I travel, and sometimes I have to opt to get food with cheese in because alternatives aren't available. But that's my own personal choice that I have made for myself, because I'm responsible for myself and I make my own decisions and I don't allow myself to be swayed by what any particular celebrity is trying to tell me to do, or indeed what everyone else in society is doing for that matter. I can think for myself. I was a vegetarian for 30 years up to that point, and I've been vegan or attempting to be vegan for about the past 5 or 6. Now, I've heard every argument in the book on both sides of the fence, and that is why I'm saying that this is not an invitation to debate, and I'm going to be disabling the comments on the YouTube version of this video because I'm not interested in anyone's opinion. I'm not interested in having a chat thread that goes back and forth for several days because I already know what's going to be said. I'm going to hear from the meat-eating side of the argument that, the only way to get proper protein is through taking in animal products. I'm going to hear our brains are made up primarily of cholesterol and saturated fat, and we need to take in more of that into ourselves in order to feed it so that we don't undergo memory loss and loss of clarity of thought and all this kind of thing. Heard that one 100 times. I'm going to hear from people that say they've tried a vegan diet and they got very ill, they lost weight, they had to go to hospital, to the intensive care unit. I'm going to hear from people that it's okay to kill animals as long as they've been lovingly reared and everything's organic and they're grass-fed, and at the end of it all they're humanely killed. So now killing can be humane. I guess you can humanely rape somebody as well in that case. So people will claim that that makes all the difference. And like I say, I've heard all these arguments 100 times, and I know they're always going to come up. I'm also going to hear, oh, our teeth are structured for tearing at meat, and our digestive systems are designed to deal with the intake of meat and dairy products. You know, in all the back and forthing that goes on, in all the arguments that take place, there is one aspect of the subject that is so often lacking, and that is the issue of compassion and morality in line with the teachings of natural law, universal law, spiritual law, consequentialism, cause and effect, call it what you will. The central tenet of this, and I try to apply this to my life as far as it's practical for me to do so, this is the code that I strive to live by, is the non-aggression principle, which states, do no harm, in its very simplest form. This can be expanded to do not treat others in a way you would not wish to be treated yourself. I know a lot of people in the truth and freedom movement who have a personal understanding, comprehension of these spiritual laws and the way that they play out in the manifested situation that we all find ourselves in. But they seem to assume that the do no harm tenet only applies to other humans. And they don't grasp that it's intended to apply to all other living sentient beings. So that would include members of the animal kingdom. Another argument you get time and time again from people that want to continue eating meat and to be able to justify it is they say, oh, plants have feelings too, so when you eat a plant, it's no different to eating an animal, so we might as well just carry on eating animals. Well, clearly there is a difference between plants and animals. The sole purpose of plants is to serve as food for other living things. This is clear down to the fact that plants offer up their food, their fruit, their vegetables, ready to be picked and to be harvested. And if this fruit is not picked and harvested at any given time, then it goes back into the ground, it decomposes, and the cycle repeats itself, and that plant will offer up new fruit next time round, the next season. That's the way it works in nature. That's its function. Plants do not have a central nervous system in the same way that animals do. Plants allow you to harvest what they have to offer as food in a way that animals don't. Don't know if you've noticed, but if you ever try and capture an animal to kill it for food or for any other reason, it tends to run away. It tends to sense the danger, and its self-preservation instincts kick in to the point that it tries to remove itself from the harmful situation, or it attacks you. That's a pretty clear indication that the animal doesn't want to have its life taken away from it, and under natural law, we do not have the right to take away the life of another sentient being against its will. I know people are going to cite exceptions here. They're going to say, if you were in a situation in the wilderness where you were starving and your only way of keeping yourself alive was going to be to kill an animal and eat it, you would do it. My response to that would be, yes, I would, if I were ever in that kind of situation, because self-preservation would kick in, and that is a variation on the self-defense principle, the take no shit part. Do no harm, but take no shit. But that is not a scenario that we're talking about. We're talking about a situation in most of the countries around the world now. Certainly America, Europe, Australia, most other parts of the world, let's be honest about this, where alternatives to eating meat and even dairy products are now readily and abundantly available, particularly with this push that we now have towards veganism in mainstream society. I'm now seeing Magnum iced lollies in vegan form. I'm seeing Shreddies cereals proudly crowing on their packets that they're totally vegan. I'm not saying these are great brands that we should be supporting. I'm using these as examples of how widespread it now is to be able to find vegan alternatives to things. You can go in most pubs now and most restaurants, certainly in the UK, I'm sure this is the case in other countries, and you can find several vegan options on the menu. This never used to be the case. So it's not as if the alternatives aren't available. Obviously, if you're going to go down the route of leaving behind a meat-eating diet and adopting a vegan one, you need to do your homework. You need to do your research. We hear from people who claim they've got very ill through lacking the vitamins and the minerals and the nutrients that they need when they've switched from one diet to another. There's right ways of doing it and there's wrong ways of doing it, but it is possible to do the research. So, going back to this argument that we always get that, oh, of course, slaughterhouses are terrible places, and I don't agree with those at all, but it's okay if you lovingly hand rear an animal yourself and it's grass-fed and then you humanely kill it. Well, let's look at the outcome of these two situations. One, where an animal goes to one of these horrific, brutal abattoirs, and they undergo the absolute horrors that go on in those places. And by the way, it was Paul McCartney, again, not sure which one, who made a statement one time that if slaughterhouses had glass walls, everyone would be a vegetarian. Whatever else people might think of this individual, I can't argue with that statement. And can you imagine if school children were taken on a day trip to a slaughterhouse and they witnessed everything that went on in one of those places? It would traumatize them so much that you would have an entire generation that just would not be able to face eating meat again for thought of what goes on with these animals. But either way, going back to this situation, you have an animal that goes to a slaughterhouse and meets its end in that way versus the animal that is lovingly reared and organically raised and humanely killed. What is the net outcome of both of those situations? Well, that would be that the animal still died, either way, right? You took the animal's life against its will. It didn't want to die, but it did anyway. So the net outcome being the same gives us an indication that this is not right action that we can be justified in undertaking, not when alternatives to these situations are available. I know people are going to say, in the past, we were hunters, that was our natural disposition, and killing animals was our only source of food. That may well have been the case at this period in history that we would be talking about. But we're not talking about that right now in 2019. So another point would be, so many people in the truth and freedom scene say that they want freedom for humanity. They recognize that we're enslaved by a malevolent control system, and they say that this is completely unjustified. We are free beings in our very inherent nature, and we have the right to be able to live freely of coercion and violation. Well, if we really want that for ourselves as a species, how do we expect that is going to happen as conscious co-creators of our own experienced reality if we're enslaving and dominating and killing other living sentient beings against their will? How do we think we're going to achieve the results that we say we collectively want for ourselves when we're practicing those behaviours on others? It's not going to work out that way. The universe, creation, dishes out consequences appropriate to the level of consciousness that's been applied to a situation and appropriate to the chosen behaviours and actions that are undertaken as well. And that happens on an individual basis and on a collective societal basis. So for as long as billions of living sentient beings are having their lives taken from them every year against their will, in a situation which is unnecessary, it really is not necessary to be doing this in 2019 any longer, then not a whole lot is going to change. We're back to what the motivation might be behind this current social engineering agenda, because that's clearly what it is, to try and coerce people to go down a vegan route. I want to be doing a show on this in the near future, really looking into what some of these reasons could be. But I'll leave it there for now, just to acknowledge the fact that it is going on. But either way, I'm someone who couldn't give a shit what celebrities are doing. I couldn't care less what such and such a famous person is trying to coerce their fans and their followers into doing. I make my own decisions. I'm able to take personal responsibility for myself, and that's what I'm doing in this matter. Like I say, I've been a vegetarian for 30 years and a vegan for 5 or 6. Doesn't seem to have done me a whole lot of harm. I hear from all these people that say they got ill from this diet. I'm 48 years of age and I've never been to hospital. I've never had to. So whatever anyone else's experience may be, all I've got to go by is my own personal living, breathing example. And that is that things seem to be working out just fine for me the way they are. So this is the path I'm going to continue on. Once again, to make it very clear, this is not an invitation to debate, and I'm not interested in people's opinions being batted back and forth on this one. I was asked by certain people to express my viewpoint on this, and I wanted to make the statement in response to this very topical, very current thing that I see going on. I'm just going to leave it at that. If anyone has their own comments that they wish to make on this matter, they are of course entirely free to do so on their YouTube channel, on their website, and on their platform where it belongs. I've just done mine where mine belongs. Thanks for listening.